I thought I'd put a quick demo of this together as I've been playing with it a lot since I bought it when it came out about a week ago. And I bought it mainly because I was interested in what the OB-1 could do, and also because it was only £50 and it's worth supporting companies that make quality stuff like this. It's new, it's from GForce, and if you know them or any of the products, you'll know they sound great, and you can really rely on them to bring cool and rare vintage analog synths into our digital realm. And they do it brilliantly. I've got a fair few of their bits and everything sounds great. So it's hard really to know what to demo because sound quality is the bedrock of what they do. So it goes without saying that this thing sounds great. That's just one of the presets. I'm just taking the effects off it. Nice that, isn't it? Let's hear. There you go, it's the delay. Let's turn that off. So effectless, it's just as nice, isn't it? Yeah, we've got an ARP down here as well. There's actually a full walkthrough on the GForce website, but I'll run through the main features here. It is based on the OB-1, but it's not a clone. There's an awful lot more in here than on the original. So if you can imagine an original synth that's been modded to with an inch of its life with all sorts of goodies, that's what we've got here. So coming back to the GForce version, and you can see it's a whole load more complex. Let's just initialize this patch. On the top, we've got the high pass, the chorus, the delay, and the reverb, and they're obviously new. And then we've got this XLFO and this XADSR. And if you're not familiar with GForce, it looks like you've got an extra LFO and an extra envelope, but what you've actually got is about 30 extra LFOs and about 30 extra envelopes. If I click on any of the knobs, you can see the selected parameter change in here. If it's lit up, it means that you can modulate it with its own LFO and its own envelope. So if we take, I don't know, what we play in here? Let's put these onto pulses, and then let's modulate VCO1 with its own LFO. So we can see the red glow on that. So we're not wasting the synths LFO to do a little bit of PWM, and then of course we've got a different one if we want for VCO2. Let's turn that up. Let's put it an octave higher. And then let's modulate that one as well with its own LFO. So you can see this little sort of red box around the parameter. That means it's selected now for this XLFO and XADSR. And if I move that, we've then given VCO2. Just click on it again. So they've both got independent LFOs there. So that makes it supremely complex, obviously. As I say, everything I click on here, so you can see the portamento, LFO rate, vintage knob doesn't do it. Volume does, but pretty much every other knob anyway, is modulatable. You can see the selected parameter changing and the little red box around things. So when I say it's slightly more complex, it's insanely more complex. We come down onto the left-hand side here, we've got aftertouch, we've got velocity. If we look at this here, we can change the velocity amount independently on all sorts of different destinations. So these frequency modulation and wave modulation amounts, plus the VCF frequency, and the macros down on the right-hand side. And we've got 4 macros as well. And these can modulate loads of different things. You can see them adding lots of different destinations to that. It only goes up to 10 on the numbering, but actually I've had this with about 16 different things being modulated. Let's just take it up above 10 to show you what I mean. And it just keeps on going and going and going. So as I add something to the modulation, you can see it gets a little green circle in there. I've set this so it's option and change, and there you can see the amount of modulation depth on that. It can be positive or negative. So if we just whip around and do a load on these, and if we click on destination now, there are all the destinations. But it says 10, let's add more. So we've now got more than 10. Clicking and holding and dragging. Then option and drag, change the amount of modulation. Click on there again, you can see we've got, how many's there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 16 on there, and you can keep on going. So without even looking at the synth engine and the additional bits they've put into the synth engine, we've just got a really massively complex synth here. And if we go into some of the presets, I mean, we've already heard a few, you know, it's just... So we're in polyphonic mode there. So we've got a polyphonic mode on what was originally a 2 oscillator monosynth. Plus a unison mode as well. In fact, let's go back to an initial patch. Put unison on. And the vintage mode, let's just have a little bit of release, do something that sounds sort of nice, shall we? Let's take the unison off, put on poly mode. Turn the vintage up. Let's do a little resonance sweep actually in unison. We can maybe hear what this vintage knob is doing. There's differences in times and there's differences in frequencies and stuff like that, isn't there? If we turn the VCF all the way up and just play a chord maybe into poly mode. Yeah, so vintage mode does what you'd expect. Then we've got a spread mode as well. So we're definitely starting off from a standpoint of everything's different, really, aren't we? Well, everything's more complex or additional to what you could get on the standard OB-1 synth. So maybe let's look at that then. Let's look at the synth engine and what you'd get on an OB-1 and what's different in this. So if we start off with the oscillators, we've got the 2 oscillators and the waveform options on them go from triangle to sawtooth, or you've got pulse. But on these, you've got this additional mode, which is sawtooth to sine. You don't get that on the original. Also, you don't get a frequency modulation and the wave modulation knob. You just get one knob and the option of those 2 destinations. So again, more flexible. And then we don't have this output mixer on the original either. Instead of having this separate wave mod knob, we have a volume switch for the VCO in each of the VCO subs. So you have off, -3 and 0. But on this, we've got these continuous controllers. So yeah, subs. The sub is a square, an octave below. So if we just detune that ever so slightly, shift and detune or shift and slide gives you very fine control. Just detune that a little bit more. Let's put it into mono mode. Nice big fat tone there, isn't there? Let's put them onto a pulse. Bit of waveform modulation. Let's put it on the LFO. So you can get lovely, big, thick, rich tones, just keeping it in the OB-1 flavour, really. And before we get to the filter, I'll just show you that we've got pink noise and white noise. Again, on the original, this noise was a switch where the envelope amount knob is on the filter here, and it was off -3 or 6. But we've got, oops, let's turn the others off. Got white and pink actually adds lower frequencies rather than taking away higher frequencies. And did I mention it's all resizable? So over to the filter then, we'll keep it nice and small so we can see what's happening on the EQ. Double click things to get them back to 0. Let's have a sawtooth. 4-pole mode and the 2-pole mode. And it's really super resonant, this. Turn the envelope amount off. It sticks there at about 20 kilohertz. It goes really low and steady. That's amazing, isn't it? Put key tracking on. Not many things rumble like that. That's lovely. Yeah, it's great, that, isn't it? That's 4-pole mode, trying 2. So we've still got that sort of self-oscillation in 2-pole mode. Let's turn that down a bit. It's dirty, that, isn't it? Do like that. We do have oversampling on this as well. It's only on 2 at the minute. We can put it up to 6 times, and you do hear a difference with this. So you can hear stuff happening, but we're not doing anything very complex there that you might expect lots to be happening, are we? But it does have it, so you have much more accurate calculations and noise filtering going on, and whatever the other benefits of oversampling are. Let's have a listen to some of the sounds, shall we? Some basses. These are using cross-mod, are they? It's got some nice little glide effects there, and I imagine that's something going on with this channel down here, channel 3. If we look at 4, yeah, it's modulating the portamento, so portamento is increased using these sliders here. We turn all those down, or put them on random. So maybe just run you through the sequencer quickly. We've got 3 channels. We've got pitch, velocity, and macro 4. Pitch does what you expect. We can set upper and lower limits for randomization. So if we put the randomization on C3 to C5 and put a scale on of, I don't know, what's that? B major. Change the length. That's only changing the length of channel 1. Channel 2, as you can see, is going all the way to 16. Note length. Then we've got probability, so let's turn the probability in that one to 0. Let's drop this down to 4. This is the velocity, by the way. So velocity is velocity affecting the VCF. Let's take a look. Filter, no, let's turn that up. So now velocity will be affecting the filter. So this is all pretty standard stuff, but nice to see it there. Swing. Hold mode. So I'm not holding a key. Cycle mode will only work once you press play on your door. And then we've got record mode, so we can just start playing notes. Let's have a listen to that. Maybe do something more musical next time with it. But hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the sequencer can do. And then we've got an ARP as well. Different modes. Octaves. Let's try a bit of Stranger Things mode, shall we? So that's inclusive mode there, isn't it? It's playing the top notes and the bottom notes twice. It's also worth pointing out that this XLFO is really fast. You can do loads of audio rate style modulation with this. This is just a preset that I've tweaked a little bit. Things that you can't do with the modulation, though, is things like on a Prophet 5, for example, you've got VCO2 on LFO rates. So each of the keys will give you a different rate of LFO, so you can get nice modulations through that. You can't modulate the time of this LFO with anything. You can modulate this with various things, but not with the keys. So yeah, it's not like an unlimited matrix with this XLFO and the XADSR. There are limitations to it. Another nice thing actually is these macros are named, but you can't see the names on this page. If we go into save, for example, we've got the macros labeled there. And we're accessing them there, and we can see the names of them there. But you can't see it here. Then the last thing I wanted to mention is the cross mod. If I go back into an initial patch, I just can't really get the cross mod to be musical, so he says doing something that sounds pretty good, but if you detune the oscillators and you've got cross mod, obviously you're detuning the patch itself. But I can never get something that's consistent over all the keys. There's normally a can. And then to detune the whole thing, you've only got plus, well, 430 Hertz to 450 Hertz. So if you do manage to find something that you quite like, it's out of tune, and then you can't really detune it much or retune it. So 0, 0. There's a C. In fact, let's show you what the tuning is. So I've got a C5 there. C4, let's put this back onto 440, so we're bang on. And this happens with all cross mod, well, any cross mod that's not a through zero cross mod. You change the pitch. So to get this from a D sharp 4, or from a C sharp 4 back down to a C, it's really hard to do it. It'd be nice if there was a big detune knob for the whole thing. So you can only get that down as far as there, and as high as there. So you don't get much range to play with, is what we're saying there. And I've not found the cross mod to be particularly musical. See? Every key plays something different, whereas normally you can make it so that each key plays something that sounds similar, and then I can detune the whole synth. Just can't do it on this. I don't know if this is an OB-1 by GForce thing, or whether it's a vintage OB-1 thing, but that had just a straight on or off on the X mod. You didn't get the choice of 0 to 100%. It was either all or nothing. See what I mean? But it's good for doing some cool stuff. For example, those sorts of punchy snare sounds are coming from adding the cross mod. If I go into the ARP and sequencer, these notes here, where it's turned all the way up to full, that's changing the cross mod amount. So you're getting some cool effects with it, but nothing particularly musical. Well, that I found anyway. Let's take a quick listen to the effects as well then. These are really nice. This reverb's great. Listen to this. Decay on full, size on full. Great big fat thing. We've got 5 presets in here. I don't know if that's infinite, but I've never waited to the end. And delay, got sync, got different modes. So very useful delay effect. It doesn't go into self-oscillation. It doesn't do that space echo thing, but that combined with, oh, the reverb still going. Let's turn this on and this on. Let's link the left and the right. Yeah, I forgot to mention the filter on the reverb. That 0 filter. It's high pass. Well, that's low pass. Nice modulation there. So on the chorus, we've got 4 different modes, which increase the intensity of the chorus effect. So let's play some chords. So nice, yeah, quite Juno-esque, isn't it? Well, a very usable chorus, and then of course got high pass. that appears to have an LFO on it, and the LFO is coming from over here. So that's the XLFO. So while a high-pass filter doesn't have the LFO and envelope and mount knobs, you do have them with the XLFO and the XADSR. And can we modulate these with it as well? Just checking the selected parameter on the right. So modulation depth, modulation delay amount, delay feedback, delay filter. So reverb decay. So we can adjust all of these with the XLFO and XADSR. So yeah, it's a really, really flexible little thing. It's much deeper than you might imagine. But I do wish I hadn't started playing with it for a couple of reasons. First, because it really does show how limited old synths and a lot of like my hardware synths are. Because I looked at this, I thought it'd be great to have an OB-1 to have a play with. And then after you've played with this, you think, yeah, I get fed up with the OB-1 possibly. As far as programming tones, perhaps after a couple of hours, because you know exactly what it's going to do. Whereas with this, you've got loads more to play with. So yeah, this makes me want to get an OB-1 to have a play with, but it also makes me think, all my hardware synths like the Prophet 5 and the OB-XA and stuff like that, they are really limited when you look at things like this in comparison. If there was anything I could change about this, though, it would be a big button at the top that did just turn it back into a straight-up OB-1. So none of the bells and whistles, because part of my joy, I think, of playing these vintage synth emulations is that you're playing with the vintage synth. You're actually playing with the limitations of those vintage synths. And yes, you can work out what they are. You just put these on off, -3 or 0. But you have got to think about it. And then unless you start from an initial patch, you've got to double check that you haven't got aftertouch or velocity or any of these modulation routines. And especially the modulation routines on the XLFO and XADSR. I mean, I've not been into amazing detail about what these can do, but that's why I'd suggest downloading the demo version and having a little play yourself. Hopefully, by watching this, you understand how it all works, what it all does, and what it is. And if you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. The channel is funded by YouTube ads. Affiliate links, do click on some of them, perhaps. And my wonderful patrons who, for less than the price of a dodgy coffee a month, get access to patches and samples, tutorials and all sorts of goodies. And do take a look at my starskycar.com website as well. There's stuff to download, there's free stuff, there's stuff to buy. And as I always say, do take a look at some of the stuff that you can buy, some of the cheaper stuff, because it does all help to support the channel. So I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere. And thanks for staying for the very end. And I will see you next time.